Hello, everyone. Good morning here, and good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. And welcome to the Achievers Forum inaugural virtual event for the 2022 academic cycle, titled Start Right, Finish Strong. The Achievers Forum is a platform at empowering students from underserved communities to pursue their dreams and, in turn, impact the communities. We plan to achieve this by organizing events aimed at fostering personal, academic, and career growth among underserved students. We are delighted to have you join us today. My name is Chigozie Ogwara. Please, we would like for everyone joining us today to introduce themselves in the chat box. So the format should be your home country, so we know where you're connecting with us from, the degree or program you intend to apply to for the 2022 cycle. And if you want, this is optional, you could also include your LinkedIn ID so we could all connect with each other. Everyone is encouraged to connect with participants on LinkedIn who have similar interests and or similar academic or career pathways as you do. As we proceed, we would quickly like to take a poll. Please provide answers to the poll questions, which should appear on your screen in a moment. Thank you. So you could just hit submit when you answer the poll questions. I can see people already participating in the chat. Thank you. Okay, so next, there are some ground rules that we will be going over during the course of this program. So first and foremost, if you are not speaking, please mute your microphone. You could raise your hand using the raise hand emoji down at the bottom of your screen if you have a question, and the person or persons speaking at the time could choose to allow you unmute yourself and ask your question or make a comment, or we could just save everything until the end of the presentation. So those are the two major rules that we're going to be following. And just be polite, because we're all adults here and we're trying to be respectful to each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chigozie, for welcoming everyone. Welcome everyone once again. It's a pleasure to have you all here. We're so surprised by the turnout of people who registered. And as we move forward, just to reiterate the ground rules, because we want to make our conversations as civil and interesting as possible. And so please just ensure that you take out some time to read through the ground rules, because moving forward, even as we proceed towards the breakout sessions, and which will be more informal than the main session, we will still like to enforce some of these ground rules. So make sure you do keep your mic muted unless you have something to say, or unless you are given the opportunity to speak, and of which you'll be beckoned on to speak. So just sharing the polling results, we see obviously we have majority of people coming from Africa, so that's interesting. We currently don't have people from Asia currently here, but I guess we'll have some people from some Asian countries also coming. But it's really nice to see that we have nearly all parts of the world represented here. And majority of people here are undergrads, which is really cool. And I see most people want to study in the US, which is also interesting as well. That's good. And the majority of people as well have not started the application process, which is normal. July is typically quite early for most places, particularly the US, because the application process starts by August. All right. Thank you so much for participating in the poll. So by way of introduction, once again, I'm delighted about this event. I'm particularly excited because of the reception and the amount of registrants we got for this event was very much unprecedented and unexpected. I think this shows that this kind of event addresses an apparent need among students in developing countries. So we have a compilation of exceptional individuals. You must have seen the flyers. So these individuals will be panelists for the panel discussion, which we'll have during the breakout session. Um, I was reflecting on this event a while ago, and I was thinking to myself that, if I had the opportunity to attend such an event when I first applied, probably I wouldn't have received the 11 rejections that I received. It's not something I'm proud of, but I'm glad that, and I also don't have regrets about it, because I'm glad, my consolation is that my mistakes will not be repeated, and our mistakes, the mistakes of the panelists, because believe you me, they at some point, one point or the other, might have faced one or two rejections from a school or what have you, or failures or what have you. But the consolation we have is that these mistakes of ours would not be repeated in this application period. And I think that brings me to something. I think a major question in the minds of people today would be that, why assemble such individuals? These are people who are busy. Why did we decide to co-organize such an event? And I think that the current pandemic, it makes the reason quite obvious. In the sense that one obvious thing that the pandemic has revealed is that the world is yet full of inequalities and inequities, such that you have developing countries facing vaccine shortages, while developed countries are enjoying vaccine surpluses. And the irony also is that the developing world accounts for a great percentage of the global disease burden, poverty, insecurity. These are things that we know occur rampantly in the developing world. But unfortunately, the tools required to make those changes are unavailable in those areas. And I think this emphasizes the need for an increase in our efforts to pursue these tools, the tools that we need, not just to empower ourselves, but also to empower others. And, in the long run, to change our communities for good. So so that's what motivated us to co-organize this event. So this event is co-organized by several people. Several people have contributed to this event. They have their own platform, but we decided to come together to build a community amongst ourselves, where those who appear to be strong, those who have the experience, who have had some of these experiences that we plan to acquire later on, where these people who appear to be strong can strengthen those who seem to be weak. Because I was weak 3 years ago, and I suffered because I didn't have people to strengthen me when I was applying. And I don't want that to be replicated. It can be costly, it can have scars. Not many people might recover from such rejections, such experiences. And so this is why we have gathered here to help each other. It's a community. The Achievers Forum is not. It's not like the regular platforms we have where people are doing different things. It's more of like a community of people with different individual platforms coming together for the same goal, to build a community, to build that sense of belonging, that peer-to-peer helping structure, whereby everybody feels supported in whatever their endeavors are. And it's also an opportunity for us to inspire people. And I hope that as we proceed and begin to hear the stories of some of the panelists as we go to the breakout session, and even our main speaker, Dr. Shegun, I hope that you will be inspired by his story. I hope that you will also be empowered. I hope that you would be empowered with the same kind of passion that prompted us when our environments were speaking contrary to our dreams. Nevertheless, we still persevered and we still moved forward. We failed, but we failed forward. And we hope that that same passion will be ignited or even reignited in some of us who have lost hope. So it's a time to be informed and it's a time to be inspired. And so at this point, it gives me great joy to introduce, a friend, a brother to talk with us and briefly today. I'm excited to hear his talk. This is someone that has inspired me personally at different levels. And after his talk, we will then divide ourselves into breakout rooms and hear from our exceptional lineup of panelists. So Dr. Shegun graduated as the overall best graduating student, which is the same as the class valedictorian for the University of Ibadan. College of Medicine class 2000 and class of 2019. And you see, one thing that makes Dr. Segun special is his go-getter attitude, together with his dogged determination to excel. And that reminds me, I remember 3 years ago, when I first met Segun, I met Segun through a mutual friend of ours. So he wanted to intern at one of the institutes I was working at back then. I was studying at back then. And then he sent me his CV. And so I just decided to, peruse and to look through his CV. And when I read through his CV, I began to wonder. I was wondering if we both lived in the same country. I was wondering if we both were subjected by the same limitations and the same, difficult conditions in the country. And because in his CV, I saw some great achievements that I consider to be almost unachievable. Having several publications, even as a medical student, for me, it seems to be like a fantasy. So I became eager to meet him, and I was fortunate enough to meet him at one of the birthday events where I invited him to speak to some students. After the talk, we were all exhausted because we spoke extensively, we met people and all those things. So we're all exhausted, and as you can imagine, as guys, of course, as students, we all cramped ourselves into one hotel room because we were exhausted, and I was ready to just, black out and sleep. So while I was sleeping on the floor, I observed Dr. Segun, and I saw Segun studying for an exam, even though he was still tired. So I stepped off while he was still studying, working. And when I woke up, I still found him working. Then, so on speaking with him, he later explained to me that he was applying for the Rhodes Scholarship. And mind you, this was several months before the application was even open. I wasn't surprised when I learned that he was later selected as a finalist for the Rhodes Scholarship. Now, this encounter with Dr. Segun taught me something. I think it's important for us to note this. It taught me that success is what happens when opportunity meets with preparation. Dr. Segun later won a Clarendon scholarship, pardon my pronunciation, to study at the University of Oxford for a Master's of Science in Immunology. And he just recently won the prestigious Gates Cambridge scholarship to study at the University of Cambridge, where he will be starting his PhD in medical sciences this fall. So he has a desire to help people, and that's why he's here today, to help people fulfill their dreams. And he's a co-founder of the Ganglion Initiative, which is a platform through which he achieves that. So my hope is that as you listen to his talk, you'll receive a burning passion that would more or less consume you. Because the application process is a daunting task, and it requires resilience and strong passion to pursue it. I was speaking with one of the panelists, and she mentioned that when she applied, she had no alternative. And that was the same thing for me as well. I was frustrated with the situation in my country, and I applied aggressively. Although this is not a do or die affair, so no pressure, but I hope you will take this meeting with the seriousness that it requires. Therefore, it gives me great joy and pleasure to invite a brother, to invite a friend, and someone who inspires me at a personal level to present his talk to us and tell his story. Over to you, Dr. Segun.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm grateful for the very warm introduction and very generous one at that. You did inspire me a lot when we met, and you still do. So that was quite generous. Thank you. Please, if you would make me a co-host or something so I can share my screen. I've got about 6 or so slides to just share. Okay. Yeah, I believe we can see my slides. Okay, thank you. So
yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm Segun Afolaranmi, and I'm privileged, I'm happy to give this talk. I see the impressive turnout, and I'm happy that quite a number of us are interested in something like this. And I'll just walk through the process, share a bit of my experience, and I'm sure that the main part of the program is the plenary. So I'm actually just whetting your appetite. So I mean, hoping that people come up with a lot of questions that we can discuss at the panel sessions. So we want to start right, finish strong, not only with applications for grad school, but with our careers, our personal lives. And so but I'll focus on grad school application. But before we go too deep into that, I think it's important that we disabuse our minds with what really this whole grad school application process, going to grad school, you've done undergrad or you're currently finishing undergrad, and then you really want to go to grad. So is it about personal growth? Is it about developing your skills? Is it about, or is it just what you might say as a competition? So you see, because if you answer these questions very well, through the arduous process of applying, if you have the right mindset, it might be helpful, to pick yourself back up when things don't go exactly as you want them, or to push through when it might seem tough. But so it's not. I mean, my own opinion, I don't know yours, is that it's not a competition. It's not. You're not competing with others. You want to perhaps develop your skills, get this kind of skill set, get this kind of education that will prepare you to do meaningful work. And that's the way I see it. Because, I did clinical training, and I definitely didn't have to continue in this line, but I wanted to get scientific experience that will allow me to do the kind of work I wanted to do, to be able to translate new treatments to my patient. So it's very, very important to think about that. And also, is it a destination mirage? Is it about, okay, when I get to this place, things will suddenly become good? Once I start my master's, things will suddenly become good. So I think it's also good to think thoroughly about that before you embark on the process. So that when you get to your master's, then okay, when I start my PhD, things will become good. And then when I become a postdoc and all that. Yeah, so it's a journey of learning as I'm realizing, finishing my master's and building capacity. And I think that's what it should primarily be about. Then about the mindset, is it fixated? Okay, I have to do this. So I like to think about this whole process in terms of outcome, right? Not exact. So what I want is that by the end of the next 5 years, I want to be a solid, I want to solidify my scientific thinking, my skills, my wet and bioinformatics skills. Now I can achieve that through different methods. It could be going to Oxford. It could be going to another place. It could actually be doing some intensive, dedicated internship. It could be, so you need to think about what exactly you're trying to achieve, and then how this graduate school helps you to achieve that. Not just that, okay, all of my friends in my class are sending applications to Yale. I have to go to Yale, even if Yale doesn't have a particular program that fits your own, exact goals. And then, of course, that boils down to crowd effect too. Then is it just a convenient alternative, right? You probably want to, you think and you're quite sure. I mean, you don't have to be sure, but you're quite sure that you want to be in industry, right? But at the moment, you've actually not gotten, the kind of portfolio you need to work in industry, and it's just convenient for you to apply to a master's, which might be way off what you would do in industry. So, is it just a convenient alternative, or is it part of what help you achieve your goals? And particularly, is it a means to an end, or is it an end to itself? I think it's just a means to an end, and so it's important to see the whole process as that. But let's go quickly to what the process might entail. Usually there's a preparatory phase. I know that many of us know all this, so I'm just going to walk through them. For the preparatory phase, I think it's important to settle yourself first in terms of purpose. What exactly do you want to achieve from grad school? What do you want to study? Why do you want to study it? How does it combine overall? So when I was applying to Oxford, I'm interested in oncology, but I was interested in cancer immunology. Now, if I didn't clarify things very well, doing a master's in cancer by research at Oxford wouldn't have given me what I wanted versus doing a master's in immunology, which is hosted in the Department of Surgery. So you need to really clarify those things like that. So even though my course is not hosted in oncology, I'm doing my research in oncology with an oncologist, but I'm based in another department. Because so I clarify those things with myself. What pathways will help you to achieve what you want to achieve? What are the potential alternatives? What are your potential plan Bs and all those things? So this preparatory phase is very, very important. Applications are not open now. Many of us in the poll said we haven't actually started applying, which is fine. But are you settling things with yourself now? Are you understanding why exactly you want to go on this process? And the most important point I would emphasize in this short talk is that information is the driver of this preparatory phase. You just need to do personal research. It's good to ask questions, right? But you need to make personal research. There's no way to replace that. you can ask somebody for a list, right? And of course, many people get that, but it's not going to help with that. I mean, when you compare that to when you discover things yourself, right? And when you like walk through the entire process like that. So I think that's extremely important to do your personal research for your schools. I normally say, okay, if you want to go to the US, look for 5 schools you're interested in the US. Look for the programs in those schools. Like the explanation I gave about doing immunology versus doing an MSc in oncology, right? I can just easily tell you that Oxford has an MSc in immunology, but my classmates, some of them are doing neuroimmunology, some of them are doing infectious disease immunology, some people are doing rheumatology and all that, and we're all doing MSc in immunology. We have different interests, so you need to like do that your personal research, know what programs best suit you, right? And then what the requirements for that program or that program is. Now, there are some programs, for instance, in Oxford, I'm going to be referring a lot to Oxford, that are like straight into research. I come from a totally clinical background with only a few weeks in the lab before coming to Oxford. So if I applied to an MSc by research, I was going to be thrown directly into the lab, and I'll have been a nuisance for the first term. But my MSc in immunology allows me to spend some time doing seminars, training, and research then before going to the lab. So it's important to know all of this, not only because you can get admission and even get funding, and then when you get into the program, things are not going as smoothly because this period of that information driving phase wasn't, done thoroughly. So, and of course, not about funding. So, and that's the time when you then begin to reach out, particularly if you are thinking of applying to a PhD. The most, or in my opinion, the most important predictor, at least in the United Kingdom, of getting a PhD position is having an interested supervisor. So who is very keen on you, and even on getting certain kinds of funding. My PhD supervisor at Cambridge told me that they spent a weekend preparing my Gates, because your department has to nominate you to Gates, preparing my Gates nomination, because they were very keen on having me in the department. So and it comes from how you reach out to them, right? How you tell them about your plans, very brief and concisely, and then what they see that you've built as a track record, which I'm going to talk about very. Also important to get inside information. So there was because I wasn't sure about what I wanted to do, right? There was a professor I'd reached out to. I told him that I wanted to come to this particular school and do a 1-year research. And I was like, why would you want to do another master's after you've done? And then he stopped answering me. So I knew that was a negative sign, right? And then, like, by the time you talk to people within their groups, people within their departments, current students, they can give you, insights that you wouldn't even get from the professors. So, yeah, I'm sure that details about how to do these things might be answered during the plenary. So I'm not going to take all of our time. But it is at this point also that you begin to gather the credentials, especially because we are in a system where things are not easy. I mean, many of us, well, my experience from Nigeria, so I don't generalize, is that like it's not easy to get many materials that are needed for applications, So like you need to start like months in advance. So you don't want to start when the application cycle opens and then you are not able to like get all you need for the application. Also very, very keen. I think after getting a supervisor that is interested, one of the things that will make them interested is what kind of letters of recommendation you bring across. It's extremely important that you inform referees. I normally have a chat session with my referees before telling them that I want them to write a recommendation letter for me, where I tell them that this is what I want to do. So you need people who are quite who think you can do it, and who are invested in seeing you do it. Not just that, I scored 89% in this person's course, right? And then he has to write my recommendation letter. But so like sometimes like I've had the privilege to read letters that some people have written, and I understand why they've put things that way. People who can comment very critically about why you deserve to, be at this place. So the thing about this preparatory phase is that it can take 10 years because you need to start forming the relationships, at undergrad that will give you the letters of recommendation that are necessary, right? So some of the African system or developing countries, the educational system doesn't allow such, because you need to develop relations. You get those very fantastic letters from. So you can take it upon yourself to develop this kind of relationships by doing research with one of your lecturers or by helping, volunteering one of your lecturers and all these things. Yeah. So preparatory phase is the most important phase actually in application, and I wanted to emphasize on that. So now I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but I thought that while preparing, it's important to like build a track record. That's why I said it can take up to 10 years. to prepare in quotes. What I just mean is it doesn't mean that, oh, I'm going to apply in July, let me start preparing in April. That's not what I mean. I mean all of the time it takes, whether you've applied before, whether you're just applying fresh, what are you building? It's extremely important to build, a track record, and I cannot emphasize that enough. So build a track record, build a portfolio as you are doing these things. Let it be purpose-driven, not just because everyone is doing stuff, right? And let them tie together in your own way. It doesn't have to fit another person's story. It's really about the story you get to tell, and the story. Yeah, and particularly for PhD applications, in my experience, and particularly in the UK, it's a vote of confidence. A PhD student might fail throughout the entire PhD. So what people, and there's no way you can know that this PhD student will fail, because it's not about exams. We don't even know. Even if the supervisor does the project themselves, they might fail at the project. So what you give is a vote of confidence. Okay, based on, and that's what my supervisor for my PhD told me. Indeed, that it's when I said that I've never done this kind of research before. So that, but I've seen your track record. So those are the things we just need to see, to think that you might succeed at doing this work. So that's very, very important, what you are building before you even apply. So the application phase is a very intense phase. It's short. Is where all of the activity goes in. I'm emphasizing again that letters of recommendation are, in my opinion, the most important piece for grad school, particularly PhD or even MSc, depending on what program it is. If you need to take any exams, it's important to get them through. Also, I like to emphasize that you should write your statements genuinely and thoroughly. Oftentimes that's where you get to express yourself in your own voice. You put together everything. Why have you been doing everything? Why did you build that track record? What does it mean to you? And all that. And I know we know some of these things. It's important to allow people also go through, challenge your thoughts. Your close friends can challenge some of the things you've written. Is this really what you want to put out there? So, and then present your best foot, but be candid. It's very, very important to demonstrate. Even if you not every time you would have the requisite, technical requirements for a position, but you might, if you demonstrate willingness to grow and learn, and they've seen a track record, they'll be happy to have you. So be able to answer why. How does it all tie together? At interviews, that's what they want to see. They may ask technical questions. So how do you remove this from this? But more importantly, these days, people want to see what's the reason for all of this. And then very, very importantly, your communication, your confidence, you communicate clearly. Clear communication helps you to say the things you can do well, and that you're willing to learn the things you cannot do well. So, yeah. So now I'm going to end with managing the outcomes, irrespective of whether it's positive or negative. Now, if it turns out positive, that's fantastic. We're happy. You can celebrate with us on this forum. You can call a meeting of all of us together again and say, no, I just got into Harvard, come and celebrate with me. I just got into University of Texas, come and celebrate with me. So it's be grateful, celebrate. You can give back, help people, right? But yeah, it's very, very important. You prepare for what's coming ahead once you've relaxed and all that. But if it's negative, it's also important to relax to begin with and reflect on what might have gone wrong. I have a personal experience from the first postgraduate scholarship I applied for was the Rhodes, which I didn't get. I came very close. It felt like I did everything right, but in fact, as Okwe said, I started, because I just moved on. I knew what I wanted to talk about for my application too. Before the application opened in July, I had my statement ready by April. Not because I was really focused on this, but because when it just came to me, I just wrote it that night, and then I did a lot of pruning later. But the point is that for my subsequent applications, after I didn't get that, it was so easy to tell my story because I had gone through that process and I reflected, right? And it was so easy to communicate clearly why I wanted to do this, why I wanted to do that, how all of this will add up. So it's very important to learn. I mean, I'm not going to say don't grieve, but relax, reflect on why things might have gone wrong, build more capacity, build more track record, re-strategize, and then go back into it. It's very important to not allow fear hold us back. and go for it. We need to develop capacity to improve our countries. We need to develop capacity to improve our personal lives, to get self-actualization, in the Maslow's hierarchy, to fulfill, purpose. If you think about it that way. So it's important to, just as far as you're clear as to why you want to do this, and you follow this process, you reinforce yourself, get support from people, put in your best foot, and don't allow fear hold you back. I'm hopeful that we'll get a lot of people, getting into good positions or not getting and reapplying and getting subsequently. To take a pragmatic view at it. But you see, the most important thing is that what happens in the process, it can actually be quite transformative. Whether or not you end up going to grad school, what happens in the process can be very, very transformative. And that's the outlook, that's the approach I want us to take to it. Yeah. So thank you for listening. I hope I didn't consume all the time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shegun, for that wonderful presentation. If anybody, we have a couple of minutes for questions right now. If anyone has a question specifically for Dr. Shegun, you can unmute yourself and ask him, or you can leave it in the chat, whichever is more convenient for you. I could go first. So, Dr. Shegun, I don't know if you mentioned this in your presentation, but would you like to share with us? You mentioned that you had applied for a scholarship and it wasn't really successful at the time, but had you applied to MSc programs in the past before you decided that this was the path that you wanted to take and apply for the scholarship that you potentially got in the end?
So the first I applied for was the one I didn't get. And so I just, went ahead and applied for the next one, which is the one I'm currently doing my master's on. So it was within the same application cycle. It turned out that the outcome of this first one came earlier and then there was still a little bit of opportunity for me to apply subsequently within the same application cycle. So So I think the important thing was that so I knew that it was a means to an end and not an end in itself, which is what I tried to emphasize. So that the idea is that I want to get trained in this. I'm going to get there. I can get there through multiple means. It doesn't have to be through this means. And I want to be in a part of a fantastic community. I can get there through multiple means. So it's very, very important to think about it that way. Yeah.
I know Samuel did mention that you started your application, you started gathering the materials way, way in advance. So would you say that, for the people listening on this call, would you say that if we were, for example, going to apply in July, should we start gathering our materials in January or February or even December?
Yeah, for me, so as I said, it's good to individualize the process. For me, I knew that it was going to be quite challenging to get things from, get the requirements I needed if I didn't start on time. And also because I kind of just writing my essay I'd been thinking a lot about, okay, I'm finishing medical school. What do I want to do next? So at that moment, I just didn't want to stop the flow of that, that thinking process, because there I had that. So I had that genuine, I just had that vibe to, put down these things as my statement. So I just wanted to write it out then, and I did. So it was very helpful with me with subsequent applications. For me, with subsequent applications that I had a template already. Mm-hmm. I just needed to prune it, to work for whatever I was applying for, particularly. So it was very helpful. But it's not as if it's the only way. You could start the day before, in quote, and still get it. But the important thing is that, you see, even if you write out something a day before, because you're a fantastic person, right? If you've been thinking about it for months, it's going to be different from the fact that, okay, you just sat down that day and then you're just thinking about the entire thing for the first time. So the important thing is about, thinking about the entire process before it is acutely due, yeah.
I guess my final question, I'm sorry, guys, if you have a question, please unmute yourself and ask Dr. Shegun. But I guess my final question is, you already said that you knew what you wanted to do right after medical school, which is fantastic. How about someone who's still struggling? They probably have a couple of things that or areas that they're interested in, but they haven't really narrowed it down. So, and they're at the tail end of their program, probably undergraduate or masters or whatever they're doing at the time, but they just haven't narrowed it down to something that they want to do specifically. What advice would you give that kind of person?
Yeah, so that's great. Maybe I insinuated it, but that's not what I meant. Like till now, I still have.
Dr. Shegun, you're muted.
Yeah, I think I was muted. Yeah, so maybe I suggested that for my talk, but that's not the reality because I still am not 100% clear of what I want to do. But I think the important thing is that have a basket, in my opinion, of okay. So I knew that So around halfway through medical school, I knew that I wanted to be involved with non-communicable disease research. I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do. But as I kept exploring, so you see, the process for me was that exploration helped me to gain more clarity. So as I explored different types of non-communicable disease, I felt like, okay, I wanted to do cancer research, right? So it's, till I'm not exactly convinced as to what specific cancer or what specific part I'm going to do. So it's a process, and it's good to also explore, as we're starting out. So I actually did not know that I was going to be doing cancer immunology by the time I was applying for my first scholarship. Yeah. So it's a process that you allow yourself to grow and to develop in. Yeah.
So we're out of time and we have to join the breakout sessions right now. I can see some people's hands are raised. You can, join a breakout session and ask the question, or if you want to join another breakout session, if the question that you have in mind is not being answered in a particular breakout session that you joined, then you can definitely join another breakout session. Dr. Shegun, thank you so much again for your presentation. It was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. So if there's a question that I haven't answered, because I see some questions on the chat, we can maybe talk about it in the breakout sessions, right?
Sure.
Yeah, cheers.